Welcome back, CSC 121 W1, to part 2 of dictionaries. And I know you were at the edge of your seat waiting for part 2 to see what we do next. But one thing I want to go over, even before I do anything more here, instead of doing two print statements, I just want to point out that you could always do this. And I'll just change this here. I'll say x equals, we'll use a variable. I'll put a space so it's easier to read. And I'll do that. And then I'll put y equals. And again, we're still using the two different methods here, but that way we'll have like Pittsburgh Pirates. And instead of having them on top of each other like that, what we'll do here is, now we didn't print anything. So if we run this, we're not going to have anything except a space. It just created a space. But what we could do here is we could print XY. And sometimes it's easier to separate the print statement from everything else going on. So we'll just print XY, and what it should do is put a space after it like it normally does with variables. So we're creating variables for these two key values that we got here for city and mascot. So it should output Pittsburgh Pirates without any comma like that. And that's fine. We could just do that for now. So that's our little printing out part of that. So let's add more dictionary items. Now, we're not going to add to this. Eventually, we'll add to this. We'll do that. We'll add colors to there, and we may make a list, which would be nice because we could add a couple colors. So other teams. Now, these are teams I remember, and I'll start with the top teams, the Phillies, Expos, and then I'll do the bottom. Cubs were always at the bottom. Mets were never that good, like in the 70s and 80s. Cardinals were kind of average until they won the World Series. I think in 1982, I think the Cardinals won a World Series. The Phillies won in 80. I forget who won in 81. That was a strike year. Pirates won in 1979. Anyway, history lesson from the 80s. I'll go here and I'll call it PHL. And I'll put equals. And actually, we could just copy this. That'll be easier because we're just going to change this, PHL. And city mascot state's going to stay the same. And actually, it's going to be PA. And they're the Phillies. And they're from Philadelphia. Now, that's a hard one to spell. Phila, and then Delphia, and it's Phia, like that. And they're both from PA. And we'll make another one. And this one will be Montreal, MTL. That's how they abbreviated Montreal. And they're in Canada. So we're going to put Montreal. I don't know what we'll put for state. And they were the Expos. Now, they don't even exist anymore. And I'm just going to put province of Quebec. I think now it's Quebec City or something like that, but in the 80s it would have been province of Quebec, PQ. Little Canada facts for you there. So anyway, we got our top three. Now we're going to do our bottom three. We'll do St. Louis, STL, and I'll paste again. And then I'll do STL. And St. Louis is like that. And they are the Cardinals. And there was always a football Cardinals and a baseball Cardinals. They both had a Cardinals from the same city. That would be like if it was the Eagles were in baseball and football. And they are in Missouri, which is MO, St. Louis, Missouri. And then we'll make one for the Mets because they were always second last. And we'll put NYM because NYY would be the Yankees and NYM would be the Mets. Yankees are in the American League. And the city is New York. We could just put New York. We don't have to put New York City. And the mascot is the Mets, short for Metropolitans. And the state would be NY. So New York Mets. And the last one we'll do is the Chicago Cubs. Now, back in the day, they only played in the daytime. Wrigley Field did not have lights, so that'll be on the quiz. Some 1980s baseball trivia. And they are the Chicago Cubs. I forget exactly what they were, but I'm going to put CHC, and then it would be CHW for the White Sox, because there's also a Chicago White Sox in the American League. So I'm going to put CHC for Cubs, and it's Chicago Cubs, and that's Illinois, IL. So we have how many here? Well, we have different dictionaries here, and we can actually put these dictionaries, kind of like a database, into one dictionary. So we might want to call a new dictionary. We'll create a new dictionary, and we'll call it NL East. And how do we set up a new dictionary? Well, we put curly braces. I didn't do that. I'll do curly braces. And then we'll put an element, a key. It's still the same way. It would still be a key, and then it would be a value. The key would be in quotes, and then the value be in quotes. What I'm going to do here is add these in, and instead of using the same ones up here in quotes, I'm going to put them in capital letters. And I'm going to put PGH. Now that key value has to be in quotes, and colon, and then I'm just going to put PGH because that's the variable. I could use that. So it's just going to be pointing to that. So I'm going to do that. So this is called a nested dictionary. And remember, use a semicolon. No, you don't use a semicolon. That's CSS. Use a comma. And I'll just copy this, hit return, and then I'll do PHL. I'll use caps on this side, and I'll use lowercase here. Even though I think you could do the same, because if the string would be different than the variable, but I just like to have them different here. So I'll just keep pasting, and I'll call this one Montreal, and then lowercase. And if you spell it wrong, you're going to get a red line because it'll say it won't exist, undefined. So make sure you spell it right, MTL. And then we'll have St. Louis, STL in all caps, and then lowercase STL. And then New York Mets, I'll just paste again, NYM, and then lowercase NYM. And then finally, the Cubs, paste CHC and lowercase CHC. So now we have a nested dictionary. This dictionary is enclosing that. Now we can build a nested list altogether by putting them in there, but I'm going to do it like this. And what you could do now you could count these, but if you needed to know how many dictionaries we made, that way you can do print, and I think we can do len of NL East. And let's see, that should give us 6. And we have 6. So, and we have that space in there because we put in a line break there, the backspace N. So basically we put the length of the list, and that's fine. NL East, that's what that means. You could do something like that. You could have done it like that. If that looks better, then you'd have to change this, and that's fine. Maybe that makes more sense than seeing N least. So you could do that. I'm going to get rid of this right now. And let's say you wanted to access some of these elements through here. Now, again, all of these elements before, we could go through any of these. Let's say you wanted to print the mascot of the Chicago Cubs. Now, we know how to do that already. So just skip over this right now. You could just put print, and that would be CHC, and you could put the brackets and just put mascot, and that should print out Cubs. And there's Cubs. And if you wanted to print out both of them, you could do the thing I did before. You could do, I wouldn't use XY again. I would use, well, let's see. What if we did X? If we used XY again, if that would screw things up. I'm not sure, but X equals mascot. Well, let's put city. City. And then Y equals CHC. We'll put brackets, put mascot, and then I'll just put print. That might work fine. Okay, so because we're redefining it, so each time. So it used XY up there, printed it out. Now it's using XY here and it's printing it out. So we could print out all our teams like that if we'd want to. And we could also access our nested items a different way. So I'm just going to leave that there for now. Actually, maybe I'll put it here. I'll cut it and I'll put it here because it's kind of after the other stuff, just like we did it after the pirate stuff. So I'll put it there. And I could even put a \n and put it in quotes because it's not a variable. And that way it'll put a break between whatever we do next. So if we'd want to access anything from these elements in here, we can access it through NL East. And the way to do that, just so you know, is let's just print something out. Let's say we wanted to just go through here. We didn't want to have to go through this whole list. Maybe it was in a different Python file, then you imported something from a Python, which we could do eventually. You know, have another Python file imported in, and that way you don't have to have all of this stuff in this file. You could just have this here. That's possible. And we can do X. Let's do another one. Let's just do output. I'll just put output equals, just for now, to try it out. And I'll do NL East because we're accessing the outer one. And then what we'll do is we'll go to one of the inner ones and STL, and it's in quotes. So I'll do STL. And then for the second one, I want to access, what do I want to access? I want to access inside STL. So let's go to STL. I want to access the mascot. So I'll do mascot in here. NL East will have an underscore in there, and I forgot that. And let's print it out. And now we have Cardinals. Now we can't join this together, but we could print out something else. We could put, let's do one before it. There's output, and I'll just put mask, and here I'll put city. Now we don't have a city variable, so I'll just do that. And let's do this. Let's do, after city, we'll do the state. Let's copy this here, and we'll do state. And then we could print out city, and we might be better off doing this. F, using an F string, so we could put it all together. So we could do F city, and then we can actually have a comma, and then in curly braces we'll put state. So we have a comma space, so that'll be part of it. I'll put my quote here so it looks normal. So city state, and then I'll just put a space and put 2 curly braces, and inside here I'll just put mascot and F string comma. Oh, I forgot no, I don't need a comma here. What did I do wrong? Oh, my quote got outside of there. Wait a minute. No quotes here. This is mask. Messing this up. Okay, city, state, mask. We're using the variables. You should have stopped me there and told me what was going on. All right, so now that should print out St. Louis, Missouri Cardinals. And there it is, St. Louis, Missouri Cardinals. Although that looks kind of weird like that, but that's the way it is. So anyway, we got to do that. So that's a way to access nested elements. So this is a nested dictionary. We have these dictionary elements inside there. Now, one thing we could do too, now this isn't that hard, and we're not doing any for loops yet. We might keep that for part 3. If you wanted to add elements, now we mentioned how to add elements, and it wasn't that hard, but what if we wanted to add elements inside the nesting one? So let's say we wanted to add something called colors. Now let's try this. We're going to go here, and we'll do NL East, and we'll use the brackets just like we did here. We can access here, so we'll do NL East, and we'll start with the Pirates, and I'll do, in quotes, PGH, and then what am I going to add? Well, I'm going to add a key called colors. So I'll put quotes here, I'll put colors, and then I think I can do this. I wasn't going to do this, I was just going to put a string, but what if we wanted to put a list? I don't know if we could do this unless we define a list first. Because we could just put colors in there like black and yellow, but what if we made a list of colors? I just want to try it. I didn't try this, so let's just put black, yellow, and I'll put this in quotes and see if this works. I don't know if it's going to let me do that because I didn't really define a list. Maybe that'll define a list. We'll see if that will add that to that. And then after this, let's print out, just to try it, just to test it, let's print out PGH. And we did not get an error, and it gave me City, Pittsburgh. There's the dictionary. City, Pittsburgh, mascot, Pirates, state, PA, colors, black and yellow. So it put the list in there. So that worked. It actually gave me the list in there. So we can continue that if we want. We don't have to print it right now. If we wanted to copy this, we could do this a couple times, and I'll show you a way to kind of do a for loop to kind of cycle through these so we could print out all the teams, and just to give you an idea of how that works, of looping through our dictionary, but also looping through our list. I think I'll do that in part 3, but anyway, I'll finish up with this right here. We'll just add our colors. So we're going to do Phillies, PHL, and the colors, their colors are red, gray, and white. I think they use blue sometimes. I think they might be red, white, and blue now. They didn't used to be, but I'll go ahead and do that. They're red, white, and blue. I'll do that, and I'll put that in quotes. And then I'll do the Montreal, and they were also red, white, and blue back in the day, before the Phillies were. The Phillies were not, actually the Phillies were not red, white, and blue back in the day. They kind of had gray sometimes, so we'll put gray in there. They had, their home uniforms were red and white, and then they were gray, and they were more crimson. They weren't even red. They were more like crimson back in the day. I'll move this so we have more room over here. So crimson, white, and gray, red, white, and blue, the Expos, And I'll copy this, then I'll do the Cardinals, STL, and they were red, white. I'm going to put yellow because they had yellow for like the beak of the Cardinals, so I'm going to just put that in there. And I'll copy this, then we'll do the Mets, and they were pretty much blue and orange. Now they had white, of course, but every team has white, so I'll just put blue and yellow. And we just have one more, and we'll do the Cubs. And they were also red, white, and blue. They were mostly blue and white, but they also had red in their logo. So I'll put red, white, and blue. But they were pretty much blue and white. They did have red in there, so I'll include red in there. Their uniforms weren't red, but their logo had red in there. You know, just like the Cardinals. Their uniforms didn't have yellow, but their logo had yellow in there. So I'm including that in there because the Cardinal had a yellow beak, and the Cubs thing had a red thing on it. So let's see. I didn't update some things here. This is NYM. And this is CHC, and what we want to do is print out the entire list. Let's just do this. This might be easier. Let's just print out PGH, Phil, Montreal, MTL, STL, NYM, and CHC. That should print out all of those dictionaries. So at least we could see if these colors were added to all of them. And there they are. So we have our, as far as our print statements, we have our Pittsburgh Pirates, our Chicago Cubs, we have our St. Louis, and this is the Cardinals one. And then down here, then we have all these. City, Pittsburgh, mascot, colors, so everything's there. So everything's working. And let's come back in part 3, and we'll just do a little bit more. We'll just try a little for loop just to finish this up. So come back for the exciting conclusion of 23 dictionaries.